Oh, see.
Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it is your Impact Attack. That's right, you there, sitting at home. It's your Impact Attack with the VBC. And who in the blue hell is the VBC? Well, we will tell you right now. I am the V of the VBC, Jamie Williams. They call me the Vet because Rip Rogers once called me the Vet, and Vet starts with the V, so that's me. With me, as always, is my tag team partner. I am ringing him in with a hot tag right now. It is B. Randon. What's up, Brandon?
Not a whole lot, man. Big weekend of wrestling. A lot of wrestling happened. A lot we get to talk about. How you been, pal?
Oh man, I've just been there's so much wrestling, and you know how I love all that wrestling. You know how wrestling's my favorite thing these days because everybody's doing it so right and good. Um, but we're not alone here in this. We've got a crew. They're filing in right now. And Brandon mutes his sneeze, and we are talking about the C, and we got a double C. We got the original C and the replacement C. We got two CCs of Colin and Chat stacked. So that's right. Here we go. So we have the Chat here with us, and it includes Colin, who used to be part of the Impact Attack, and then he was like, "Nah," but that's okay. We're holding it down, and he's here. And who else is here?
See who else we got with us tonight, pal. We got Lab Rat, we got Liz, we got Al Robinson, pal, and we got Sonic the Hedge Rat. What's up, y'all? Whoop whoop.
That is a excellent Hall of Fame chat to start us off. I'm sure more people will join us as we get going. And as we get going, we are going to talk about the happenings in the world of professional wrestling, sort of. There isn't a hell of a lot of brand new stuff. I mean, we had a Monday locker room earlier today that probably covered a lot of the things. And if if you've been paying attention, then you probably already know if there's been any major announcements. The only thing I can really think of is that this is another weekend, just like Brandon said at the top, that we had a bunch of wrestling on one weekend, even though, maybe we could have spread this out a little bit. Maybe we could have had, a little bit of, but we had a TNA pay-per-view Turning Point. We had a WWE pay-per-view Survivor Series. We had the usual Collision, but they stacked Rampage on top of Collision for a 3-hour special block. And Lord knows what else wrestling went on the independents and everything. So a lot of stuff there. I didn't really get a chance to watch Survivor Series. Actually, that's a lie. I had a chance and I took it to not watch Survivor Series. All I saw was the main event, and I heard about everything else. Of all things, I heard Vince Russo praising a wrestling match. So it must have been an amazing Survivor Series.
To be fair, that was the exact same reaction I had when I was watching. I'm like, that was one of the best matches I've ever seen. Like, they did a great job of storytelling and character development throughout that match, especially between Roman and Punk.
Yeah. So there was that. But in fact, as a matter of fact, he was talking about Walter and Damian Priest, so now I have to go back and watch that to see what made him love it so much.
I can't comment on that one because I didn't catch that one.
That's right. A late start watch along. It was a little too late for the World Heavyweight Championship match, I suppose, here at HMG, but that's fine. Neither one of us watched it. Can't comment on it. Can comment on the Survivor Series War Games match. Like you said, it was a pretty all right match with the storytelling. Yeah, it's a little goofy and melodramatic in terms of like the overall presentation of how you're saying we're settling your family dispute about who is in charge of the family in a event sanctioned by a sports promotion. You know, like that determines anything. Like if there's a family dispute, winning the Super Bowl will squash the dispute for a quarterback or something. I don't know. It just seems silly overall, but they work really hard to get the fans invested in it, and I guess you can't argue with the results right now. Um, but yeah, that's the only match I really got a chance to see. And you said you liked it as well, Brandon. You liked the dynamic of the Punk, and supposedly that the scene of Roman putting his arm in front of him to let Sami Zayn go out became a huge viral hit over the weekend. A lot of media views and stuff.
To be fair, it is a good meme image. You could get some material out of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, so yeah, so that was that. I'll have to go back and maybe catch some stuff, but other than that, not a hell of a lot of news. Brandon, did you see anything, make its way across your desk that you feel is particularly newsworthy? Because I have just one tiny piece of news. It's kind of relevant only to Turning Point, so I could just talk about it when we get to Turning Point because it's not much. Do you have anything?
Man, unless that had been something that slipped through my cracks, because I have not really heard much other than the whole thing with Trey not being able to make it because of travel reasons. Same with Rhino, or same with PCO.
That's the thing. That was kind of the thing. So yeah. Spoiler alert: Trey Miguel didn't make Turning Point. But we'll talk about that when we get there. So I guess that that is pretty much that as far as the intro and the news, because I got nothing. And then I suppose we can just go ahead and get cracking on the, well, you see, it would be nice if we had, like an Impact episode to review here. Unfortunately, what we got, and we remember this is PTSD from a year ago where we had a bunch of canned stuff that we had to deal with. Now, it's not going to last as long as it did last year, hopefully.
You feel like Steve Macklin does in that vignette last week.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, so TNA presented us with their Thanksgiving special. And what they did here was they gave us a series of matches that were recorded and not aired for whatever reason. Probably because they were thinking of this day in advance, which is nice.
Get matches in the can, pal. We might need them.
Right. So rather than do what they usually do, which is, which we probably roasted them for last year, and maybe Brandon, you and I had some hand in shaming them out of doing this again, because I'm pretty sure, if I had to guess, last year around this time, they just showed a bunch of those Turkey Bowl matches and, embarrassed themselves at how shitty this company used to be. And we buried it and said it's a good thing they don't do this kind of stuff anymore. And then now they've just took a compilation of matches that they filmed throughout the year that have nothing to do with Thanksgiving or Turkey Bowl, and did that. So okay, I'll take it. One of them was a moose match, so never before seen moose match. All right. I mean, it wasn't exactly what I would have wanted, but we'll explain that in a moment.
It's moose.
It's moose. Take any moose. Any moose is good moose. So without further ado, the Thanksgiving special, we'll start off with, actually, it's a double shot of moose, because it's a moose. It's not quite a moose sandwich, because it's the moose match isn't at the very end of the show. It's right before. But the first match is the System, which would...
Could you say still a sandwich, and the main event's the toothpick? The frilly toothpick.
I'd prefer to do that because it's Dolph Ziggler in the main event. So it works for me. Um, so we get the system, the Moose version of the system, because I don't know if JDC was official at this time yet. I forget. This was back in October in Nashville, but it's Moose, Fat Eddie, and Fat Myers versus Joe Hendry, PCO, and Sami Callihan of all people. I mean, I can understand wanting to keep a Sami Callihan match off TV as long as possible. But anyway, yes, this is the 6-man tag. And, the end comes when Fat Eddie is hoisted up for a standing ovation and summarily planted down. Joe Hendry picks up the win for his random team. It's quite a random team.
Yeah, why not air a match of the challenger for the world title getting pinned on the Go Home show? Let's do that.
I think it's smart. Just to give you that extra bit of intrigue,
Yeah, as if we didn't already think Nick Nemeth was going over. Let's do this. Throw that on there too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, Labrat says Sammy going bald. Psh, going. He's had that. He's been combing that shit over since MLW. Next we had a match from June in Philadelphia. Is Jordan Grace versus Danny Luna. I mean, I can give you a guess as to how this one goes. You said you didn't catch this one, right, Bray? You weren't able to make this Thanksgiving special, so busy week, couldn't get the Thanksgiving special. If I tell you Jordan Grace had a match with Danny Luna, what do you think the finish is? I'll give you 3 guesses. If I had the Jeopardy music, I'd be playing it.
Who is Jordan Grace vet?
Yes. For bonus credit, would you like to say what the finish actually was?
Juggernaut driver.
Yes, that is correct. Clean in the clean in the middle. You got all the bonus points. You unlocked all the secret bonus points. So that happened. Then they had a skit where Sami Callihan, they got all the Sami Callihan that they did not air on television this year, and they put it in this episode. It's Sami Callihan, it's the Good Hands, it's Xia Brookside, it's PCO. They're all playing poker, and yeah, it's as bad as there's lights, it's as bad as TNA can get. This is the worst stuff they've had since what was it? Who had was a Swinger that had the casino?
Swingers Palace, daddy.
Swingers Palace, yeah. It was about on that level. Which I know some of you may, actually be excited to hear, but you know what I mean. We also got a match, another one from Philly back in June. They didn't give specific dates on these, obviously, because they're from sets of tapings, but this was a triple threat between Leon Slater, Trent Seven, and Mustafa Ali. So that'll let you know where we're at with the roster here. Leon Slater.
No, it's kind of weird how Naomi and Mustafa Ali both kind of came through, won the belts, dropped them, and left.
Yeah, they really contributed to TNA's success as a company. I'm sure that, well, talk about turning point. In this match, though, Leon Slater hits his amazing whatever three. What does he do? It's like a shooting star salt thing. Like he flips 20 times in the air somehow, and then I forgot even now what he does exactly, but Ali comes in and just shoves him out of the way and pins Trent Seven after it. So he steals the win from him. Pretty good little heel finish. Ali was a guy that used to do a cool move. He used to do the reverse 450. And just didn't do it one day. Just one day, the most interesting thing about him, he stopped doing it. Next we have Jake something versus Speedball from October in Nashville. Of course, this is after the Hammerstone alliance with something. So he's out there and he shoves Speedball off the top rope when he's going for the ultimate weapon and the referee has been distracted. He shoves him off the top rope and then Jake something hits him with a, I don't know. It's not his finish. It was like he hit Mike Bailey with a Polish hammer or something and pinned him. So rare win for Jake something. Rare loss for Mike Bailey. Although the losses are a lot less rare this past year. And it's, you know, with all the talk of him going to AEW soon, TNA is going to, you know, they dig in the vault and find this one where he lost to one of the guys that never wins a match. So I let's just say that didn't completely escape me. Actually, I'll be honest with you guys because I like to be honest with you guys. That did escape me until I said it all out loud right now, and then I put it together. As I was watching the match, I was like, "Who gives a fuck?" But that is that. And then next is it's Coach, which is Casey Navarro and AJ Francis versus Joe Hendry and Rhino. This is from just last month in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Standing ovation to Casey Navarro, of course. So that's 2 standing ovation wins on this episode for Joe Hendry. It's a little late. You had him challenging for the title last time. And when you see what he's doing at Turning Point, you're going to be like, why bother? This is where the casket match comes in. It's a casket match with Moose versus PCO in Montreal. This took place in July. And finally, they had some bit of psychology where they realize, hey, wait a minute. This is a casket match. We're the system. PCO's alone. We're just going to start the match kicking the fucking shit out of him and throwing him in the casket right away and trying to do that. And they did. But then, apparently, Joe Hendry comes out. This is all, Joe Hendry's all over this episode. Joe Hendry comes out, makes the save, starts fighting the system. As PCO's laying in the casket, the lid is up. No one can even bother to just quickly elbow it, knock it down. Even accidentally, nobody can knock the lid down. And then Joe Hendry continues, cleaning house. And then, Moose ends up in the casket losing. So there you go. It was less of a match and more of like a spectacle to make the Montreal fans happy. You know that Montreal wrestlers, especially PCO, can't do a job in Montreal. We know this story. If you don't know this story,
just ask Kevin Nash.
Yes, go ask Kevin Nash, or Google it, because Kevin Nash might not respond to you. Even though he does respond to nobody sometimes if they insult him badly enough. I wouldn't think anybody here would need to insult Kevin Nash, so probably just Google the story about PCO not wanting to do a job in his hometown. Back when he was a pirate? Was he a pirate then, or was he still a Mountie? I think he was.
Might have been a pirate at that point.
Had to have been a pirate. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was before him and Jacques showed up in WCW as the Amazing French Canadians.
Yeah. And he had quit being a Quebecer by the time Kevin Nash was the champion, so. Anyway, yeah, sadly Moose loses, but whatever. It was just a,
dark match in Montreal.
Yeah. It's all right. But I did like the idea that it wasn't a real match, because I'm so tired of like guys that have entire gangs of people at their disposal and then they just go have a regular match for like 15 minutes and then the one person runs out toward the end. Like, that's always bullshit. I like that they did that. And then your main event of this episode is Dolph Ziggler versus Sami Callihan from San Antonio in September. Danger Zone for the win. This had to have been, no matter what Dolph Ziggler might say, he had to have been like, Jesus. So so that happened. Um, yeah, this was basically your Sammy Callahan and Joe Hendry episode. And if you like Moose, there was a couple Mooses, so it worked out. Um, but yeah, that does it for that. And so I guess with that being said, that was your Thanksgiving special, and now we've got the special double punch of punching up Impact, in which Brandon will take us through not only the previous week, but a brand new future alternative week where we didn't have Thanksgiving, where we were completely ungrateful as a nation for what the indigenous people did for us. And we decided to not recognize any of that, and just go right ahead with another wrestling show, another weekly wrestling show. This is that alternate universe. This is that man, Brandon. Will you please punch us all in the face?
Yes, so let's start it off with going back to
a ketchup packet.
A ketchup packet. Of course, where did I put it? Right here, pal.
Let
me go to the 21st of November, 2024. Of course, with our recap ketchup packet, intro, pyro, and ballyhoo, go to the announce table, run down card for tonight, give their thoughts on recent events. We go for an in-ring, Nick Nemeth, Joe Hendry, and the System. Nick Nemeth, music and entrance. Nemeth talks about what's been going on with himself, Ryan, JBL, and Joe Hendry. Nemeth apologizes to Hendry for how Ryan's been behaving, but after last week, he has a couple of questions and says, say his name. Joe Hendry, music and entrance. Hendry says that if Ryan got injured in their match last week, then it was an accident. Nemeth brings up Hendry with the kendo stick. Hendry replies that he could have taken Nick out, but he didn't. The System, music and entrance. The System promo where they stir the pot. Santino, music and entrance, and he books Joe and Nick versus Edwards and Myers for the main event. Shot cuts to the parking lot where a limo with horns on the hood pulls up in the parking lot. Go to our first commercial break. Go to the parking lot. Santino is knocking on the doors and looking through the windows. The limo driver tells Santino not to disturb his guest. Match number 1. Trent Seven, Alexander Hammerstone, Jake Something versus Hardys and Ace Austin. Trent Seven, music and entrance. Hammerstone, Something, music and entrance. Hardys and Ace Austin, music and entrance. Condensed version of match on the show. We go backstage to Santino's office. Hendry enters Santino's office, wants to know what's going on and if JBL is really there. Santino says he doesn't know, and he'll go talk to Nick. Commercial break number 2. Match number 2. TNA Knockouts Championship. Masha Slamovich versus Alicia Edwards. Alicia Edwards versus music and entrance. Masha Slamovich, music and entrance. Condensed version of match on the show. Same post-match as on the show. Backstage, Hardys, Ace, Rascals, and Kushida. Hardys and Ace thank Rascals and Kushida for their help. The group talks about how they're going to blow the roof off the building for Bay. And then Rascals invite everyone to come hang out at the treehouse next week. Match number 3.
If all the members can make it due to travel.
If they can make it due to travel, yes.
They can travel up the tree into the house.
Then match number 3, Moose and JDC versus Leon Slater and Laredo Kid. Leon Slater and Laredo Kid, music and entrance. Moose and JDC, music and entrance. Condensed version of match on the show with Laredo Kid getting the win instead of Leon Slater. Backstage, Masha and Jordan, same as on the show. Backstage, Nick Nemeth's locker room. Santino answers and questions Nick about JBL's limo being at the building. Nick says he can't control JBL's actions and he hasn't responded to any of his messages. Cut to a shot of Joe watching on a monitor in his locker room. Third commercial break. Come back with match number 4, Savannah Evans versus Brittany Jade. Savannah Evans, music and entrance. Brittany Jade already in the ring, same as on the show. Backstage, Gia and Joe Hendry. Gia asks for Joe's thoughts on everything happening. Joe says that the only thing he knows is to keep his head on a swivel. In ring, Mike Santana and Frankie Kazarian, same as on the show, but without that horrible production error of putting a promo in picture-in-picture. Cut to commercial as Rhino makes his entrance. Commercial break number 4. Match number 5, Frankie Kazarian versus Rhino, condensed version of match on the show. Vignette, Steve Macklin and Eric Young, same as on the show. Vignette, DMTV. Sami Callihan does a DMTV where he rips on First Class and makes them his target. Backstage, First Class. Gia asks for First Class thoughts on Sammy's promo. AJ Francis responds to Sammy, and Casey steps up and says he wants to face Sammy next week. Match number 6, Jody Threat versus Ash by Elegance. Ash by Elegance, music and entrance with Concierge and Heather. Jody Threat, music and entrance with Danny Luna, condensed version of match on the show. We go backstage to Nick Nemeth's locker room. Joe Hendry enters and confronts Nick about JBL being at the show. Nick says he hasn't heard back from JBL and shows Joe his text history. Joe accepts that for now and mentions that they can handle that after the match. Joe and Nick leave the locker room and the camera zooms in on Nick's phone. Nick receives a text message from JBL that says, "What are you talking about? I'm not at the show tonight." Go to our 5th and final commercial break. Go to New Japan Hype video. Go to the announce table. Rundown card for next week's show. Rundown card, current Turning Point card. Match number 7, Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers versus Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry. Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers, music and entrance. Joe Hendry, music and entrance. Nick Nemeth, music and entrance. During the match, the camera cuts to the limo and the driver opens the back door, and Moose, JDC, Alicia, and Tasha step out and begin walking toward the ring. They come out from the entrance. Nick and Joe go over by DQ after all members of the system lay them out, and it ends with them standing tall over Nick and Joe.
Dun, dun, dun.
So basically, that's they're fucking with them.
Okay. I want to make a point. I wasn't going to interrupt you, but I want to make a point about, because you put a DMTV segment in there, right? And there wasn't one, right, originally. Correct. So this is something that you added, right? Now you guys, nobody is unclear about my feelings about Sami Callihan, right? But you heard me, we both kind of, definitely more me, but we both discussed, the negative aspects of Steve Macklin's mini movie, his short film that aired that week, and how ridiculous it was with the dream technology and all this other stuff. And one of the reasons that it's so ridiculous is because Steve Macklin, I'm using his real name for emphasis here, even though it's probably not his real name, but he's not Bert. So his character is much of a straightforward meat and potatoes as you can kind of get in wrestling, where, he just has the fringe, aspects of a gimmick, being that he was in the military. Okay, he served in the military, and that's it. Other than that, he's basically just a wrestler. So to have these kind of things that are like overly, what's the word? Impossible to happen, where you have this clearly edited film around him. It completely does not jibe with the presentation of Steve Macklin. It looks self-serving and pretentious. Now, I'm not a fan of Sami Callihan, but the way he does his vignettes and Death Machine TV in particular, it fits his character. This is something that, despite, they do the thing where he tries to hack into live broadcasts and shit like that, and they could do that in a more, there could be production touches that make that more effective than the way they do it. But just as something like a DMTV, it's like you could see that this guy, this clearly unhinged guy, could sit around and edit a video and present this to TNA management and be like, play my tape, and there's, whatever, Sammy, you could see how something like that could work in a real world context where it makes sense, to do something like that. It's about, would the person do this in real life? Would Sami Callihan be crazy enough to create his own content and sort of foist it upon TNA as play my tape, play my tape, play my tape, play my video, do my thing? Yes, I could see in that world, I could see him doing that. Could I see a war veteran allowing a camera to film him from the ceiling in his underwear while he's dreaming? No, I don't see that. So that's why that shit doesn't work for me, brother. Does that sort of clarify like the line that I'm drawing in terms of like believability and presentation? You have DMTV, which is clearly a production effort, so it's the same kind of thing, but it makes sense in its own context. Even though I don't care for Sammy Callahan, but I'm putting him over in that these things will work in his context, but other things don't work if they're similar for different performers. Does that kind of make sense now that we put them back to back like that?
Agreed. Like when you put it that way, I think like the idea with what they're doing with that, it could have worked if it had been shot and produced everything. Like maybe say Macklin's sitting at the bar and the camera is somebody that Eric Young brought with him, and it's basically like, hey, we need to talk, and Eric brought the cameraman to film it.
Right. Yeah, and then you have things that walk the middle line where they veer back and forth between like pretty good and goofy, like the recent sit down between Paul Heyman, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns. Like, yes, you could say, okay, we're going to film this. It's going to look cinematic. That's a little bit corny. It becomes over the top corny when you add the music stings and stuff like that to it. It just really cheapens the whole thing. Like, we don't have the mental capacity to sit and pay attention to two men talking without camera angles and music. It's not compelling enough that these guys are sitting down for the first time. That's not enough. We have to have music and camera angles and goofiness. So like everybody has room to improve in their presentation if we're trying to get to a product that is like palatable to the largest audience, because there's going to be people that will eat whatever you feed them. There's going to be people that will never watch, and then there's going to be people that are like kind of on the fence on both ends of the spectrum there, where they're like, I can only take so much bullshit, or yeah, but this is, you know, like this is the best stuff I've ever seen. So like there's guys there's people and all that, and we have to serve most of the middle, and catch those people that are ready to drift away is my that's my thing. But okay, rant over, sorry. Please continue with the alternate universe route.
All right, so you go to next week. So let's see, what date was that? The 26th of, oh, I'm getting my dates wrong. The 28th of November. We get a replay catch-up packet once again.
Mm-hmm. Let everybody know it's Thanksgiving tonight. And what are you doing watching this? Turn it off.
They go to our intro, Pyro and Ballyhoo, go to the announce table, run down the card for tonight. They give their thoughts on recent events. In-ring, Nick Nemeth, Joe Hendry, and the System. Nick Nemeth, music and entrance. Nick cuts a promo on how both him and Joe Hendry have realized that the System are playing them against each other. Joe Hendry, music and entrance. Joe agrees with Nick and says that before they can finally have their one-on-one match, they need to take care of the System first. The System, music and entrance. The System talk about how they have got one over on them last week, but continue to mention how JBL still took out Hendry and how he can't be trusted, and how Nick can't be trusted. Joe Hendry suggests himself and Nick Nemeth versus Moose and JDC in the main event. Santino, music and entrance. Santino books the match for the main event. They cut to a shot of the limo with horns on the hood pulling up to the building. Moose says that while they played Joe and Nick last week, they have nothing to do with this. And we go to our first commercial break. Come back, match number 1, Alicia Edwards and Tasha Steelz versus Jordan Grace and Masha Slamovich. During the break, ref sends everyone besides Alicia and Tasha backstage. Alicia and Tasha already in the ring. Jordan Grace, music and entrance. Masha Slamovich, music and entrance. Alicia and Tasha over after miscommunication by Jordan and Masha. Backstage, the System's locker room. The System put over Alicia and Tasha's victory. They talk about how they'll soon have all the gold in TNA. JDC tells Moose, great job on bringing back the limo to screw with Joe and Nick and pretend like he has nothing to do with it. Moose gets serious and says he wasn't joking earlier and says that he does have nothing to do with that limo. Commercial break number 2. Come back to Nick Nemeth's locker room. Joe Hendry enters and asks Nick about the limo, and Nick assures Hendry that JBL said he wouldn't be there and shows him the text messages. They both agree it's just Moose stirring things up again. Match number 2, Laredo Kid versus Kevin Knight. Kevin Knight, music and entrance. Laredo Kid, music and entrance. Laredo Kid over clean. Backstage, the System's locker room. Moose is watching on a monitor. Gia enters and asks Moose for his thoughts on his match against Laredo Kid. Moose begins to speak before his phone rings. Looks at the phone, tells Gia he needs to take a call before he steps out of the locker room. We go backstage to the hallway. Masha is walking. Jordan approaches and apologizes for what happened earlier. Before Masha can respond, her and Jordan get jumped with weapons by Alicia and Tasha. Rosemary appears with a weapon to help Masha and Jordan, which sends Alicia and Tasha running. Match number 3, Danny Luna versus Heather by Elegance. Heather by Elegance, music and entrance with Ashton Concierge. Concierge pre-match promo. Danny and Luna, music and entrance with Jody Threat. Heather over Dirty after interference. Backstage, Nick Nemeth's locker room. Nick and Joe discuss strategy for the main event. Nick gets a text message from Ryan that he just got cleared. Third commercial break. Vignette, FCTV. Actually, no, sorry, I'm going to cut that. That was a original idea I forgot to cut out of here. So yeah, the next is match number 4. Sami Callihan versus Casey Navarro never gets started because as Sami Callihan makes his entrance, he gets jumped and beaten up by First Class.
I'll take it.
And as they're taken to the back. Oh, wait, nope. I fucked that up. I got this all messed up. I got to go with the original draft. I apologize. Okay, so yeah, we had the vignette of FCTV, which was a parody of First Class doing DMTV. It gets hacked and edited while it airs by Sami Callihan.
Aha! The hacker returns. Cameron Crowe. Or whatever his name was.
Then you go to match number 4, Mike Santana versus AJ Francis. AJ Francis, music and entrance. Mike Santana, music and entrance. Mike Santana over clean. Frankie Kazarian runs in afterward to attack Santana while First Class join in. Announcers note that Sami Callihan is not in the building because he was had some travel issues. Let's just say his flight got cut from coach to canceled or delayed.
Oh.
And you go to a vignette, the Treehouse with the Rascals, Hardys, Ace, and Kushida. It's literally just them hanging out, chilling, doing their thing. Like you don't really got to give any credit to them. It's like, okay, here's what you're doing. You're all sitting around smoking weed and chilling for 5 minutes. Go.
5 minutes is an eternity. All right.
Then you go backstage to the Systems locker room. Santino enters and tells Moose to admit that he's doing the same thing as last week. Moose says he has nothing to do with the limo this week. Commercial break number 4. Then you go to a vignette of Steve Macklin's hotel room. Steve and Eric have a discussion about trust. Eric makes the offer to put trust to the test with a match against Northern Armory with Josh Alexander barred from ringside. Match number 5, Northern Armory versus Macklin and Young. Northern Armory, music and entrance. Eric Young, music and entrance. Steve Macklin, music and entrance.
30-second splash.
Young and Macklin over clean. Josh Alexander out to attack both men with the rest of Northern Armory. And then we get a vignette with Crazy Steve, pal. Talks about everything he's been through and how he's coming back and bringing friends.
Oh,
go to the park.
The clowns from Mexico?
Yeah, pal.
All right.
You go to a parking lot. A camera follows Santino from his office to the parking lot where the back door of the limo is open. 5th and final commercial break. New Japan hype video. Announce table. Rundown final card for Turning Point and any matches for next week's show. Moose and JDC versus Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry. Moose and JDC, music and entrance. Joe Hendry, music and entrance. Nick Nemeth, music and entrance. At some point during the match, they cut to the match is thrown out after Ryan Nemeth comes to the ring and attacks Joe Hendry. Nick asks Ryan what he's doing. Ryan flips off Nick before he leaves the ring.
What are you doing? What are you doing, little brother?
And we go off the air with the system standing tall over Joe and Nick.
Hey, all right. That's all that matters. Big victory shot of Moose doing stuff. I'm in.
And with the way they're building like Moose up as like the X Division champion, making that the main title, well, wouldn't that, if you're putting more and more heat on them in this, in the rest of the system, wouldn't that make it a little bit more believable that, hey, Brian Myers might actually take the belt from Nemeth?
Yes.
And he could be the secondary player to Moose.
Yes. Yes. Well, no, but yes.
Got to make a compromise somewhere, pal.
I don't think we have to make any compromises. This is fantasy booking. Literally, we don't have to compromise anything. We can do exactly whatever we want. If we say Moose gets all the belts and does an Ultimo Dragon, then that's what happens. And if you don't like it, you can go bet on yourself in another company. So, that takes us to Turning Point. Turning Point was, full disclosure, not something I was looking forward to watching. Also, full disclosure, not something I fully invested in watching. I did the bare minimum so that I could bring you this recap. So Brandon, if you want to expand on any of these matches, feel free. But overall, my takeaway from Turning Point is, considering the apparent uptick in TNA business and the fact that they're gaining a little bit of momentum recently business-wise for whatever reason, whether it's WWE collaboration or whatever, because they got the same basic talent. Now they're getting a little traction, and then something like Turning Point happens, and this Turning Point, in my opinion, based on recent trends, is not fit for broadcast. The show was ugly. It was shot poorly. It was lit poorly. It looked like there was nobody in the building because it was dark, and
it was a convention center. It wasn't an actual like venue.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say this took place at WrestleCade, so this was just one of many other attractions that you could have had at WrestleCade. Oh, go watch Turning Point, and it shows. Like, it's almost that level of afterthought is put into this show. The audio is shit as usual. There's always issues even on their best of shows, but this, like, all the mics were just, like the audio is just blown out and peaking or whatever. Nothing sounded good. Nothing looked good. It definitely looks like when you have a B crew of people that, have to just record some content, and this is not your A production. So if anybody was like tuning into Turning Point thinking, I've been hearing about TNA, let me check this out, I have some free time, which why would you this weekend of all weekends? But I mean, does that play into it, Brandon? Do they just say, it's gonna air the holidays, nobody's gonna watch this shit, fuck it? Is that it? No effort because not with the foresight to think that this, recorded thing will live on forever for people to always go back and watch anytime they want? Is there any of that, or what is the deal?
I mean, I would think there is at least a little bit of that in there, but I also think you got to a factor in too, like when did they make this deal with WrestleCade to appear there? And you know, they could have made that deal a while back, and they could be beholden to it. Who knows? But that still doesn't excuse the bad production.
No, yeah, that's exactly the point. Whatever it is, you gotta fake like it's good. You gotta have the professional quality, and then that way, at least when people glance at it, they won't glance away so quickly. So I don't know. Now if you made this free, like, hey guys, happy holidays bonus turning point. Okay, no complaints. But this was part of the paid app, right? And they raised the price on that app once Endeavor started running it. And so people, I don't know. I just, it's a little bit lower than I'd expect even from TNA, but whatever, here we go. The Countdown show has Joe Hendry coming out, making fun of his opponents in the Turkey Bowl. Well, not even all of them. But just a couple of them. And it just lets me know how far this guy has fallen, to where he was competing for both the NXT championship and a TNA championship within a span of weeks. And now he's, you know, even though he's on the main card, but he's also on the pre-show, and the main card match is the joke match of TNA. Yeah, we've been dealing with this for years now. Like, you and I have been dealing with this for years of TNA, and they're like, they really know how to cool somebody the hell off.
Masha.
Yeah, she's a cold champion. But she's at least better now.
Yeah, imagine they would actually put the belt on her during that first hot streak when they first brought her in off of Jordan, that first Bound for Glory she was part of.
Yeah, actually, Jordan winning those matches hurt Jordan Grace, because she had no contenders, and that was the person that could have been the Rocky 3. Like, I'm going to steamroll you and surprise everybody, and now Jordan Grace has got to get back at it and make her interesting. I don't think it was Jordan Grace's creative, but I mean, I'm sure she just did what they said, but fuck, man. I mean, I asked this, I find myself asking this question on Impact Attack quite often. Who in the fuck is making these decisions? And who told you you could? So anyway, Joe Hendry on the pre-show, and then Savannah Evans versus Zaya Brookside versus Rosemary. You remember that hot angle they were all in? Yeah, me neither.
So hot, set my brain on fire, and I forgot it.
That's right. It burned that portion of your. Yeah, spear to Zaya Brookside if anybody cares. Rosemary picks up a win. And then we get Burt Macklin with Gia and no music underneath. He says that tonight in that ring, I'm going to leave Josh Alexander lifeless. So he's promised a murder. Always good when a wrestler can not only promise a murder, but make yet another promise that they can't keep, as potentially the babyface in this situation. I'm going to kill you, and then I'm not going to do it. That's that, you know, threatening murder, not delivering on the murder, and being a babyface. That's 3 strikes in American baseball to me. You're out. We'll even if we forgive the dream, the dream technology in your underpants.
Check out what's down here, pal.
Yeah, so Turning Point's off to a hot start if you were thinking about buying it. This definitely sold you. Yeah. If you don't murder, are you even trying? That's a great question, Lab Rat. It's We've upgraded from just cheating. It's now murdering. Got to murder. Got to keep up with AEW, you know. So now we're at Turning Point. And the opening match is Mike Santana versus Frankie Kazarian, the king of betting on himself to be the opening match job guy in TNA at a convention. He gets his block spun, but does anything about this match stand out to you, or no? Okay, didn't think so.
Other than the booking made sense because Santana's a guy on the up, and you can easily get Kazarian back over with the call your shot thing, if you actually put a belt on him.
Yeah, I'm sure that that's what they keep telling him. And I'm sure that they're going to keep telling him that up to the point when they tell him he's going to lose his call your shot trophy. And then that's going to be a thing, but he'll still get his heat, and they'll just keep telling him whatever they need to until he gets the message, which he might not. I mean, we've seen this happen to, I don't know, Moose, Joe Hendry. So System does a promo. They all do a promo. Myers leaves the promo early because he's got the Turkey Bowl match, and you know he's got to get out there for that. It's very important.
Suit up, pal.
But everybody else cuts their promo. Moose says something. I didn't make any notes really. I just wrote the results down. But if my memory serves, I believe Moose said something about just taking Laredo Kid's mask and giving it to his 6-year-old kid just because he can.
Yep.
I think he said something like that.
He did.
So he's over with me. And then we get the Turkey Bowl match. And this is not only Fat Myers, but also Joe Hendry, as we mentioned earlier, versus Eric Young, you know, with full sad Johnny Cash bullshit emo entrance. John Schuyler. I don't even think Jason Hotch came out with him. Not even just to come out. Just John Schuyler and Hammerstone. Hammerstone walking to the ring like, how did I get signed to this place? And Rhino, the Hall of Famer. Take it away. I mean, what do you want to say about this?
A bunch of guys did stuff. Joe Hendry hit his finish on Myers. He got pinned and stuffed in a turkey suit while him and Eric Young posed around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the baby faces hung back and kicked the shit out of Brian Myers. I'm fine with that. They probably didn't do it hard enough. So they put the suit on him because even though the stipulation is that if you refuse to wear the turkey suit, you're fired. And Jade, the announcer, made sure to say that at the top of the match, but he did just try to leave, and then they went and got him and beat him up and put him in the suit. So couldn't they just fire him also, even though he ended up in the suit? But like for insubordination, attempted insubordination, they fire him. I think attempted insubordination should count as insubordination, and you should be fired. But that's just me.
Attempted insubordination.
Yeah, so he's in a turkey suit, and that's going to be funny too later, but not in the funny way, but in the sad funny way. So Rosemary's trying to do a promo. Unfortunately, the crowd is still mic'd and the audio. So the I'm sitting there while Rosemary's talking like, huh? Classic. This is classic TNA. I have no notes. It's perfect. What would a TNA pay-per-view be without audio problems, despite all the audio problems that there were as a baseline in terms of how they had the whole setup? But yeah. So whatever she said, I don't know. It was sinister sounding. And then we get Laredo Kid versus Moose for the X Division Championship. I mean, this is my main event. Um, so yeah, basically, if I was to summarize this, I'd say Moose does the kid's stuff and pins him with a couple of spears. Meaning, he took a bunch of flip bumps that he probably shouldn't have due to the laws of physics and tried to shine him up as best he could because he knew he was going over. It didn't last that long. So, at least in that way, it made sense. And I did notice that when he went for the rock bottom type move on Laredo Kid, he definitely let him out earlier than normal. So it ended up being a nice, clean, soft landing for Laredo Kid on that bump. Where we've seen, I mean, we talked about his power bomb on the apron from the previous match and how bad that was and how he needs to just be careful. So we'll just take credit for it. Moose was careful because of us.
You're welcome, Moose.
Yeah.
And you're welcome,
We
Laredo.
love Moose. We only want the best for Laredo Kid and everything. He's an inspirational story. Don't want him to get crippled again after surviving, you know. But yeah, that was basically it, and Moose retains the title. Did you have any other notes to add on this particular contest?
Not really, other than Moose he's just so great at looking dominant while making the other guy look great as well.
Yeah. He's so much presence in the ring. The only thing I would have done different for this match is I would have made the more of the opening part of the match Laredo Kid attempts and fails. And then toward the end he starts to hit it. You know, he'll go for something he would do things like he would jump up on Moose's shoulders and do like a victory roll or something, you know, and Moose would just take the bump looking like, come on, nobody's going to do this. So I could see him going for things like that, you know, at the start. So for example, you jump up on Moose's shoulders, like maybe he tries to throw a line or something and then you dodge it, crucifix yourself up there, climb up there, whatever, go for a roll or a crucifix pin or something like that. And he stops you and then whatever. And then like later in the match, you know, perhaps you drop kick his knee and he goes and he falls and he hits the second rope and then he bounces off and then you're already running off the ropes and then you jump while he's off balance and then it causes him to roll forward and you go for the near fall pin there. Like the only reason I was able to take him down with my rolling pin is because he was already falling down anyways and I just use the momentum and not only are you making it more realistic, but you're telling a story in there of like, if at first you don't succeed, try again and yada, yada, yada. But why am I explaining this for free on a podcast when you guys are professionals and you're getting paid for this? And no, I'm not bitter. Next match, Burt Macklin versus Josh Alexander. No disqualification.
Except with Northern Army barred from ringside.
Yeah, because, they're barred because they didn't want to pay him for the appearance. That's I'm not gonna pay these guys for the appearance. Fuck that. Yeah, I get it. I wouldn't either. We'll just say they're barred from ringside. This was the usual garbage match except for a couple of things. And I'll tell you one of them. Whenever you bring out the velvet bag, we're conditioned to expect something like thumbtacks, right? And
we've seen thumbtacks, we've seen glass, we've seen Legos.
Right. So we have, swerved a couple of times on where, it's not thumbtacks, it's something else. And this time, I haven't seen this one before. A bag of shell casings. So Steve Macklin went to the Army surplus store in got the like the bulk food scoop thing. Got himself a bag of. He weighed it. He weighed it by the pound. Yeah, like, oh, that's about, yeah. That's about right. And then, yeah, just these for me, thanks. Or he just went to the shooting range, fired off a bunch of rounds, and then just picked them all up out of the grass. Either way, it's funny to imagine that. And of those things that we mentioned, tacks, glass, Legos, these would probably be the least painful things to land on, I would assume, due to their rounded shape and their smallness. Not to say it would be comfortable, but I just mean the least uncomfortable of those options, I would say. So that was that. Other than that, they did the same usual stuff with tables and doors and chairs and other bullshit, right? And then, but there was one thing that really stood out to me immediately that just made me. It's like whenever you remember, Brandon, do you remember back when Alexander had that match with Eric Young and they did that stupid move off the top rope and I said I was done with both these guys? Remember that? It was a while ago this year.
Not off the top of my head. I have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, you don't have to. Definitely don't. It's just, but I'm just asking, do you remember me saying that? Like when I just said, I've officially washed my hands of Josh Alexander.
I do remember that.
Yeah, everybody crosses this line where I try to be respectful. These guys are out there doing it. And I try to respect their effort. And, you know, hey, I'm just some guy. Who'd I ever beat? Yada, yada, yada. Don't want to, you know, but eventually people cross a line and Josh crossed that line. And every time somebody crosses that line, I always feel bad
but it's TNA. They're supposed to cross the line.
They're supposed to cross that line, but not this one. Not my line. Don't cross my line. Cross the line, not my line. When they cross my line, then after some time goes by and I'm like, you know, I don't know. I'm being too hard on Josh Alexander. Should I forgive him for being a fucking moron and doing that thing that I hated? It's just, maybe it's just a one-time thing. Maybe he was not going to do it again, right? And then something happens where I go, no, I was already right. I should never second guess myself. When I'm right, I'm right. And me, I'm always right until I'm wrong. But until I'm wrong, then damn it, I'm right. And that was the spot where Josh Alexander suplexed Macklin, German suplexed him so that his neck hit the second rope.
Yeah, that was what the fuck.
Like your first point of contact is the second rope. Before your body even hits the mat, your neck hits the second rope.
Yeah, now that you say that, I now specifically remember that spot, and I remember being like, what the fuck was that?
And the match was only like a couple minutes old at that point. It wasn't like toward the end for like even a false finish. It was barely a cutoff spot, because I'm sure that if I was to go back and watch, Macklin was up and fighting within a minute, 2 minutes. But if after all these years, what is it? It's going to be 2025. I think in January marks my like 4-year anniversary at Hami Media Group. If you, after 4 years of me at Hami Media Group, need me to explain to you why you don't fucking suplex a guy's neck into the ropes, you know, feel free to drop all my podcasts off your schedule, because I'm clearly not getting through or entertaining enough. Just leave me behind and save yourself 6 hours a week.
Yeah, you don't need to bump guys in that nice, safe mat behind. Just throw them right in the rope.
For what? It's Turning Point. No one's going to watch this. The whole show looks like shit.
Turning Point. So when your next hits that thing, it's going to turn a point.
Right. Hey, what happened to Chris Bay recently?
He took a bump.
Oh.
Did something to... Not sure what it was it got. Something
Not
to his
here or
neck,
here so much.
but
Right
more like
about
here,
here.
here. Nope.
Jesus, what happened to your
Wait.
neck?
Damn it, I knew it. See, Richard?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that just happened. And you think a good idea for a spot in a match, whoever's idea this was. But even if it was, I don't care if it was a producer's idea. I don't care if it was Bert's idea. I don't care if it was somebody from Anthem making a call from the top saying, look, whatever you guys do on Turning Point is up to you, but make sure that you suplex Steve Macklin onto his neck onto the hard steel cable ropes. Even if that was the case, Josh Alexander just said, I'm not doing that. Because Josh Alexander had a fucking broken neck, and Chris Bay just broke his fucking neck. So anyway, he takes a top rope KIA for the loss. Probably dangerous for his neck too, but fuck him. And that leads directly into our package, our very nicely professionally done package on Chris Bay and all that he's done for TNA Wrestling and how we can help with Chris Bay's recovery. You know, after the garbage match with the neck suplex.
And dude getting dropped on his head off the top rope into shell casings.
Yeah. You know what the saddest part of all this is? I'm probably the only person saying that. And no one's really going to hear it or pay attention because we're just not that over. So, this is just going to die right here. And unless you subscribe to Channel Attitude, you won't be able to hear it again. And the people that need to hear it probably won't hear it. So, anyway, now that I'm sufficiently worked up, we can get through all the other matches I didn't care about, didn't want to watch, like Ace Hardware versus Zack Kushida and a surprise opponent. Because as you mentioned, Trey Miguel had travel issues, whatever the hell that means, and they needed a substitute, and because they just happened to be at WrestleCade, I guess there was no shortage of substitutes. And then who they ended up getting was...
They kind of drew a little bit back onto some NXT storytelling when they brought back the shaman of MSK, Matt Riddle.
All right, bro. So, yeah, bro, I can do a match, bro. He came out and he did a match, bro. He's the partner, bro.
Bro.
Yeah, so Jeff Hardy hits the Swanton on Kushida and everyone's friends afterwards. So that's it. Anything else on the match?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's a Chris Bay tribute match. There's a bunch of guys having a good match in honor and tribute of their hurt friend.
Me neck suplexes or...
I mean, I'm pretty sure they were smart enough to avoid that kind of stuff, considering they were kind of like three of those guys were in the match where it happened.
All right. That's nice. Jordan Grace versus Mosh Slamovich, 2 out of 3 falls for the Knockouts Championship. What did you think of this?
I thought this more than anything kind of established that, okay, the torch is kind of officially passed from Jordan to Masha. And it'll be not long before we see Jordan in NXT permanently.
Agreed. Well, here's a recap for you anyway. The first fall, they did a defensive pin drill, which ended with Grace on top, jackknifing Masha Slamovich's legs over her head and pinning her. Second fall, Jordan Grace goes for the Juggernaut driver, and Masha counters with an inside cradle. Nice tight inside cradle. Looks like it would pin somebody. So that's good. Um, Rosemary is watching on from the shadows. But even if she didn't want to watch on from the shadows, she didn't have a choice because there's no lighting in this building. Third fall is just a package pile driver. It occurs pretty quickly after the second fall. Masha hits the package pile driver on Jordan Grace. So,
Right, not even the snowplow.
no, maybe she's moving on to the package pile driver because she beat Lish with that too.
Yes, right, she did. Yeah.
So she might be liking the idea of breaking necks, but at least in a way that's safe. Unlike, say, Germaning somebody onto a fucking steel cable. Your main event, somehow, is Fat Eddie versus Dolph Ziggler for the TNA Championship. I know I watch TNA every week, kinda. Why is Eddie in this match again? Because I forgot.
We need to throw a warm body in there, and Moose is already the X Division champion.
Okay, so it's not just me. It's not just me that missed where Eddie even should get a title shot, right?
No, there was nothing established to set up. It's just like, okay, Eddie's getting the match.
Okay. Because I miss things. And sometimes the chat will call me out for missing it. And I appreciate that. That's what I want them to do. Because I have some integrity. And so if I make a mistake, I want to be corrected. So please correct me. But yeah, it just shows up at the main event. A turning point is just Eddie Edwards just because. Okay. Well, now that we know that, as the match is getting in the ring, I just already, like, as I'm, okay, it's like, this is how I do it. I'm watching. I have my phone. I'm making my notes as it's on. I say Fat Eddie versus Dolph for TNA title. And then I put comma, Danger Zone, I assume, because I know that's going to be the finish to this as soon as I see these guys step in the ring. It's Danger Zone, Dolph over. So I just typed that here, and I typed out I assume. And I can screenshot it and send it to you, Brandon, for veracity if you want me to. But then...
I believe you, along with the no music underneath.
That's right. Yes, the predictive text. Still on there. I even switched phones. I had to get a new Galaxy because my other one had a screen crack.
Oh, dude, they keep that in their memory banks or their cloud.
Very nice. Very nice, very scary. So anyway, yes, I assume right, because what I do next is I take the progress bar and I drag it to the end, because if you seriously think I'm going to sit and watch Dolph Ziggler versus fat fucking Eddie Edwards, this guy in a main event with a shirt on, you're out of your mind. And you also still haven't been listening to me for 4 years. So I drag that shit right to the end, and sure enough, it's a Danger Zone, and Dolph goes over. However, I was like, okay, I'm not going to watch this match, but I am going to do enough due diligence to drag the progress bar back to the left and make sure that there wasn't some shenanigans, because Lish is out there. We've had these things, like other stuff going on, Ryan Nemeth, whatever. So I was like, let me just make sure. So yes, there was Lish shenanigans, and Myers came out
in the turkey suit.
So he sat through 2 hours of this show. He was probably so engrossed in the 2 out of 3 Falls women's match that he could just not peel the turkey suit off. No shower. I'm just going to wait in the turkey suit. It must have been too hard to take off. Yeah, he waits, shows up. JBL comes through, clotheslines him, and then that's that. So that was that. And then the finish happened, as I said, Danger Zone, super kick, Danger Zone. We go off the air, everybody, Dolph Ziggler's champion, yay, whatever. That's what I saw. I did not actually watch the body of the match. I zoomed around with the progress bar to make sure I caught the results. Did anything else happen that I missed?
No, you missed nothing.
You mean Fat Eddie and Dolph didn't put on a clinic like Gunther and Damian Priest, or they didn't tell a cinematic masterpiece story like the men's War Games match, or no? It was just a match in a convention center in a dark room.
It was that. It was nothing to write home about.
But Dolph Ziggler's so damn good at this. Eddie's a Kowalski guy. Why isn't everyone talking about this match? At least Lish is pulling her weight, whatever weight that is. It's easy to pull. It's not much, but she's doing it. How much do you think she got to eat at Thanksgiving, too? Like, do you think, is this the one day of the year where even Eddie can't eat all of it? Or
I think she got a plate, and that's about it. No leftovers.
you think the pumpkin pie crusts were just left in the tin because he doesn't want them? She's eating them like, like carrot sticks. The carrot sticks she's usually left to eat, little
What if
pie
she found?
crusts.
What if she found some icing to dip it in?
Oh, like she's got the Cool Whip tub and she's just like scraping it off the side, like, there's a little bit in here. She's like trying to reach with Kendra. She ate the crumbs. Well, that was Turning Point. If the name of the pay-per-view or whatever is to be taken literally, then we're in a downturn.
That's not the direction you want to be going in, pal.
No. And that's why I'm not necessarily a fan of just keeping the names for events, because they've always been there and you're just going to do it. I think if you're about to put on they knew what that show looked like as they were doing it. Obviously, they're like, ugh. But you got a bunch of old names of stuff that you could pull out, I think, because you don't want anybody to think that this is a turning point for you. Unless it's the turning point of like, okay, we are never broadcasting an event like this again. That is the only way you could go in a positive trend. So. But I think on a positive note, we are done for tonight. And you all are free to enjoy the rest of your evening, late night, morning, whatever.
It's always morning somewhere, pal.
That's right. So we will let you out of here. And if you enjoyed this and you enjoyed us, then there's a few other places that you can find us, all of which we'll tell you about right now. Brandon?
Right about now, pal.
Brandon, go ahead.
All right, let's see. You can catch me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these days, the X at LG Brandon Whoop, because X gonna give it to you, pal, just like Moose.
What?
And then, of course, I'm also on twitch.tv/LG Brandon Whoop Whoop, where I'm streaming at least once a week, which is the guaranteed night is every Wednesday night, right after the AEW Dynamite watch along right here on the HMG YouTube channel. And to see what we got tomorrow night, we got HMG After Dark. Not sure what we're doing with that this week, but we'll have something. We'll get something figured out, pal. And then Thursday, HMG After Dark once again. Friday will be a late start SmackDown watch along, because I don't get off work till about an hour before SmackDown ends. So we'll probably cut in late. do like a catch one of the parts of it and just speed through it, and then come back to the other part. But then Saturday, what's going on Saturday? Probably another HMG After Dark, and then of course Sunday is a replay of the TNA Impact watch along, or Impact, a replay watch along of TNA Impact. Sometimes my brain moves way too fast for my mouth, or my mouth moves way too fast for my brain. One of the two.
And that takes us right back to next Monday, where we'll be here for the Impact Attack.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah, I was actually able to, because of the holiday, I was actually able to catch a Brandon Twitch, so that was fun time hanging out, playing, what was it, Soul Blazer?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely do that if you get a chance. And as for me, you could find me everywhere at Opinion Haver. That includes Twitch too. You can find me there. You can find me on all the social media platforms. You can find me on all the video game platforms. You can find me on platforms that I don't even use, but I just took the name because that's what branding's all about. And no one's offered me any money for any of these usernames yet, so I should be relatively easy to find. And you can also find me at HMG doing not so much the watch-alongs, but I will do the reviews, such as the Next Level Wrestling review with Big Ray Hernandez every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. We talk about NXT. You'll catch me doing Da Wreckage every Sunday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. With Jimmy T, we talk about an entire week of AEW. This time, Brandon, I believe we pulled the entire show in an hour 25 when I've wrapped an entire week of AEW. And of course we had the preamble to start. So we are the AEW Speed Champions. And like I told Jimmy, we are co-champions. We're not tag team champions. We're the co-champions. Like we both, it's like a China Jericho situation. Okay. We're the co-champs. AEW Speed. WWE's got all these belts. AEW's fallen behind, actually.
There was 1 week where SmackDown beat Dynamite in the belt count.
Mm-hmm. It's only going to get worse. Because when you counted those belts, were you counting the presented belts that don't have holders yet, like the U.S. Women's and the Intercontinental Women's?
Correct. If the physical belt appears live on camera, it counts.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, but anyway, so you could catch us there. Catch Wrestling with Rip Rogers every Friday at their concrete time, except this past week because of holiday. But 4 weeks ago, you could catch me as the co-host of Wrestling with Rip Rogers. So if you didn't see those episodes, go back on the YouTube channel and watch them if you care to. I would appreciate that. We had a really good time. It was fun. And Rip is as lively and sharp as ever. So let's continue to appreciate and support the reason that I'm here and the reason that so many other people were able to make a good living in wrestling. And speaking of which, Stevie Richards made a pretty damn good living in wrestling, if I say so myself, and he continues to with the Stevie Richards Show, which is very entertaining content. New episodes every Friday. This past week, he was talking about
the invasion.
I think the reason I had trouble forgetting what his topic was the past 2 shows I've done is because he doesn't just cover the one topic. They talk about lots of things on each episode. It's a good variety of stuff. And then they have like a main portion where they focus on a certain topic, like the invasion, like Paul Heyman, like the ECW One Night Stand revival, and all these things. But it's all surrounded by so many different topics and tangents and other things that it really is just
and like
can't miss.
Like in-show programs within their own, within the show, like you got what went wrong and what went right. You got him doing scoreboards. Okay, where am I going to score these 2 guys on these, what's the word I'm looking for? Merits or strengths or whatever. all right, we're gonna do a grading of like, okay, how do I rate these specific wrestlers in this specific category?
Right. This week was niceness. Yeah, how nice were these guys? So, like Brandon's saying, there's so many things, and I don't think anybody else is doing anything like it. And I also feel that the show is severely being slept on. So, um, yeah, that being said, check that out. And if you have any free time left after all that, then do whatever you guys want to do. But whatever you do, make sure you do it safely. Be aware of everything around you. This holiday time is crazy for a lot of reasons. So be extra careful when you're out and about, because you are the only one that's going to look out for you. Most people don't seem to have any regard for their surroundings, or certainly not their fellow man. So always be vigilant so that you can be safe, so that you can come back to us and we can do this all again. So thank you for being here. And for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign off line.